Hello and welcome back. All right, so in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use the layer mask when working with adjustment layers in order to do custom edits. And this is just one example of many that you can do with layer mask, but we're going to learn the basics and the principles of layer masks, and then you can apply that to any type of edit that you're trying to achieve. So this is an assignment-based lesson, so if you want to follow along, go ahead and grab this image, and then after you're done with this lesson, you can work on the assignment, which is to change your mushroom to color and everything else to black and white. So let's go over the basics of your layer mask. So your layer mask is represented by this square right here, and when you create an adjustment layer, this layer mask is automatically applied. But you can also add a layer mask to other layers as well. And then you can make custom edits on that particular image layer with the layer mask. So here's how it works. Anything in white is adding that edit. Anything in black on this layer mask is removing the edit. So white adds, black removes, but you can also use gray to bring in a certain percentage of that edit based on how dark that gray color is that you're using. So you apply your edit, then you use your layer mask and your brushes to paint on with black to remove or white to add back. So by default, when you create an adjustment layer or add a layer mask, your background and foreground colors change to black and white. Then, with your brush selected, which is the letter B, you can paint on with black to remove the edit, and then the original image below comes through. So over here, we can see where I applied the black brush, and you have to make sure that the layer mask is selected, otherwise it's not going to work. So if you're on this icon, you can see there's a little outline of this area here. Then I'm not going to be able to paint in that area. I have to make sure that my layer mask is selected, and then I can paint on or paint off the edit. So if I switch to white on my foreground with the letter X, it switches the foreground and background color, and then I can paint that edit back on. So right now I have a black and white adjustment layer. So let's go ahead and do this from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and let's go ahead and add a black and white adjustment layer. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the color channels right now. This is just a basic edit, and we have our layer mask selected. So that means I can paint on, but I have the wrong foreground color on right now. So what I need to do is I need to switch the background and foreground color again with the letter X, or just click on this little arrow icon here. So with black selected, I can remove my black and white edit in this area or any other area. So this gives you the precision and control to apply edits exactly where you want them. Now, if you did the ACR section, you may remember that we have a local adjustment brush that allows you to paint on edits exactly where you want them. This is the same concept. It's just done a little bit differently because we're using layer masks and then the brushes to paint with black or white. White adds, black removes. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that with Command or Control and the letter Z. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in with the letter Z to get my zoom tool. The letter B again to get my brush, left bracket key to make the brush smaller. Then I'm going to outline the mushroom and paint around it. And as you can see, I'm already going outside the mushroom, and I'm going to need to fix that so that we are just affecting the mushroom. So I'm going to go ahead and do the stem as well. I'm going to switch to white for the foreground color with the letter X. I'm going to make my brush smaller with the left bracket key. Then I'm going to go ahead and paint along the edges to make sure that there's no color on the outside of the stem or the mushroom. The other thing you want to make sure you have is a soft edge brush. Right now I'm at 43%. You could do 0 for the softest, but then it's going to bleed into the mushroom a little bit more. So I like something in between for something like this. If you go hard edge, then it's not going to blend in very well with the rest of the image. You're going to have more of a hard edge versus a softer edge. So I'm just going to continue going around the mushroom. Actually, I did too much there, so I can undo that with Command or Control and the letter Z, or I can just paint that back in by switching back to the foreground color with black. All right, so our mushroom is now done. There's actually a little bit right in here. I'm going to paint back on in this area here. Okay, now our mushroom is done. All right, I'm going to go ahead and undo that with Command or Control and the letter Z. Actually, I'm going to paint this area out because I want to show you something else. And instead of painting with black to add that back, I'm going to click on my foreground color and just pick out a gray color. Any color is fine. I'm going to click OK, and then I can paint in this area. And you can see that there's a little hint of color there. Now I'm going to paint over again. Now it's adding more because now I'm stacking my gray colors on top of each other, and it's adding back more of that color the more strokes I apply with the gray color. So you can paint with gray as well if you want to stack your strokes in order to blend in the adjustment slowly over a period of strokes versus applying it at, let's say, pure black, which would be 100% applying it. So this is a way to bring back some of the original image to help it blend in, and this may help it look much more natural versus doing it 100%. The other thing we can do is we can adjust the opacity of this layer mask now if we want to tone down this black and white effect on the rest of the image and create more of a vintage type look. And we can do that simply by adjusting our opacity slider. So here we have a little bit more of the color in the rest of the image and the full color of this mushroom. So this mushroom still stands out versus the rest of the image. If we go down to 0, we get the original. And then somewhere in between gives us a little bit of color back in the rest of the image. You can also use your keyboard shortcuts for adjusting your opacity, which are your number keys. 0 will reset it back to 100%. 5 will set it to 50%. 3 at 30%, etc. Now here's another quick tip. If you have your brush tool selected and you're trying to change your opacity here and it's not working, if I press the number 9 key, we can see nothing happened. There's my 5 key, my 4 key, nothing happened. That's because we have our brush tool selected and we're actually adjusting the opacity of the brush. If I press 9, we can see the opacity for the brush change to 90% and now back to 40, 20%, etc. So if you're getting frustrated why your opacity is not changing when you press that number key, it's because you have the brush tool selected. So just keep that in mind when you're adjusting your opacities. Okay, so that's the basics of layer masks. Go ahead and grab this image and apply a black and white edit. Use your brush tool with white, black, and gray to paint that mushroom back in. Go ahead and post it in the Q&A section for feedback or just to show off your editing skills. And I look forward to seeing your images. Once you're done with that, in the next lesson, we're going to work on layer masks again, but we're going to use a different tool instead of our brush tool. So when you're ready to do that, I'll see you then.